What's a dead giveaway that someone is not a good person? Never taking accountability for anything.
This is actually a pretty good indicator of a person with some kind of personality disorder like narcissistic. The clue you are looking for is that nothing is ever their fault. Unless it's really good, then of course it was all them.
Always talking shit about other people when they aren't around. I work with a guy who's closing in on 70 years old. Easily 90% of the conversation I've had with him over the years is shitting on, really over the top, to everyone that isn't me, and he's quite friendly to me, especially if he needs something. I can't remember if I overheard him, or if someone told me, but I know for sure he shits on me the same way when I'm not there. So now, every once in a while I'll just sharply divert whatever we're talking about, and flatly ask him how many times he called me a dumb motherfucker / cocksucker / etc. Before I was in range of hearing. Turns into a wilted petunia.
I guess a subtle one is them treating you differently in public versus how they treat you privately. These can both go either way.
I've been having this issue with a friend. Nice one-on-one, will help out when he can, but absolutely trashes me in front of others, especially women. People who are always trying to manipulate a situation from the smallest things to the bigger issues. It is exhausting to be around them. My youngest sister is this. I told my mom years ago that I refuse to visit home for extended periods of time because she always starts a chaotic fight out of nothing, then I'm trapped there for a week or two while everyone is in a bad mood because of her attitude. I will never stay longer than 3 to 4 days anymore. How someone treats another person based on their job title. Anyone who treats a server, maid, garbage person, etc. like crap is just telling the world how much a piece they are. As a truck driver I get looked down upon by some. Most of the time it doesn't bother me because of how much I get paid. I don't have a college degree and I make a decent chunk of change. I feel like I made a good decision and nobody is going to take that from me. When it does bother me is when I'm accused of being stupid. I get the whole thought process of why we're looked down on. I don't however get why some think we're all stupid. The trucking industry has just as many idiots as any other industry, but we aren't defined by them. The reason they're so obvious as opposed to other industries, is because they're driving huge trucks. A complete lack of compassion, unless it's about themselves. Putting people down for fun. Never accepting responsibility for shitty behavior. Everything is always about them. Everything. Even if you're going through something difficult, suddenly they've been through the same thing, but worse. Even when they're being generous it's for public display and not from a genuine place. Sulking and throwing fits to get their way. When you express a boundary, they try to guilt trip you, pressure you, or threaten you to try and force you to do things you don't want to do. I've always held that if someone gossips to you then they'll most surely gossip about you to others. Also, if someone tells you something that they were told in confidence then you absolutely cannot trust them to keep anything you tell them to themselves, even if asked to. Big red flag. They never apologize, or their apology is them just listing out problems about other people. The classic "I'm sorry that you have a problem with my actions" instead of "I'm sorry I did something wrong." When I was in my early 20s, 20 years ago, I had a boyfriend who lived in my childhood bedroom with me at my parents' home. No matter how much I bugged him, he refused to thank them for feeding and housing him. He said that saying thank you implied he didn't deserve it. Then someone I was very close to died, unexpectedly due to a congenital heart condition, and the wake was on his birthday. I left the wake early to take him to Chili's, which I regret to this day. He spent the entire night complaining about how his birthday had been ruined. Nothing is ever their fault. Pulls the victim card every time. My borderline narcissistic mom used to accuse me of this when I was a kid. She was consistently the one never taking any blame for anything, but when I'd call her out on it, this would be her retort, projecting her "nothing's ever my fault" behavior. As a kid, you're simply not capable of figuring out how to counter that. This shit fucked with me so bad. They constantly say or do things where their only justification for doing so is it was just a joke when called out on it. Ah yes, the Schrodinger's douchebag. They decide if the offensive or rude thing they say is a joke based on the audience's response. When people say it's just a joke after they say something obviously rude/hurtful to someone. Unfortunately my one married Psalm friend does this to many of her friends and family members, myself included. Her and her brother stopped speaking because her sister-in-law finally had the lady balls to tell her she's never liked her and she was sick and tired of all of her rude "it's just a joke" crap. Once when my husband and I were at my so-called friend's house for a get-together, she yelled out and pointed, in front of everyone, saying I was her geriatric friend. I'm 4 years older than her. Everyone just looked at her and gave her a WTF look, and some of her friends started giving her shit for it, so she tried to backpedal, saying it was just a joke. I gave her a look of disgust and said wow thanks. My husband and her husband weren't in the room when it happened and my husband said if he was there he would have told her to F off. Another time a bunch of our friends were together for a concert and she yelled out abruptly to me, in front of everyone, "You're old." I was talking to one of my husband's co-workers at the time and we both just gave each other a WTF as her problem look and ignored her. She wonders why we rarely, if ever, hang out with her. Her husband is awesome, always fun to be around, and is super nice. My husband says she's only like that around me because my husband and I don't have kids, I'm skinnier, and I look younger than her so she feels inadequate/threatened. I don't care how she feels, it's not an excuse to be allowed to treat someone with such disrespect when they cannot bring themselves to celebrate someone else's success. Had a friend like this. She was nice and seemed to like me. Took me quite some time to figure out the odd thing that was missing in our relationship. She couldn't be happy for me. Not even a little "yeah, good for you" or something like that. My unscientific theory is that this comes from having parents who pit their kids against one another/other people. My mom always made everything a comparison and a competition between her daughters because she's like this. Especially me as the smart one. My older sister was supposed to be the beauty and my younger sister the artist, so I got the most obvious pressure. For example, if I started working out, my mom would start to too and then tell me how much further she biked or how much longer she walked. If one of my friends got a higher score on an exam, she'd want to parse out why and strategize how I could come out on top next time. Once I became a lawyer, her running into old high school friends' parents was the worst. She'd mention my degree/job almost immediately, then ask them that their kids were doing now so she could mention my career to show off. She'd then call me and tell me all about it. It's the only positive attention I ever got from her. It nearly destroyed me, all that stress and anxiety and difficulty supporting my friends' achievements. My younger sister and I both had to really work on ourselves in therapy to stop being like this. Our older sister is still like this and we both have really limited relationships with her as a result. I give my mom almost no information about my life because it'll either be used to brag to her sisters about how much better I am than their kids or be used to passive-aggressively hint at how I could improve. Nothing is ever enough for her get promoted. Well, so is your sister and when will you be the boss? And why aren't you thinner? These days I'm a really big cheerleader of all my friends' achievements. Still have to actively talk down my mom's voice in my head about it though. I would agree with you about 99%. Then there's the 1%, like my extremely socially awkward friend. He's a super nice guy, very intelligent. But he's not one for showing much emotion to his friends. For example, I just had my bachelor party and I invited him because I wanted him to get out of his shell a little bit and have fun. Well, he came to my party, to my surprise. But out of all of my buddies, he's the only one that didn't say congrats to me. I know he likes me as a friend because he does talk to me and ask me about my day or at least shows interest in my life. I think he just struggles to show what he thinks could be vulnerability. It's very odd, but I would say he's a good person at heart. A lot of times they'll straight up tell you. Anybody who gleefully tells you I'm such an asshole or I'm such a bitch is usually not joking, even if they say it while laughing. Men who are so into the bullshit alpha and beta male thing and women who are so proud of being bitches pretty much are screaming out that they have no redeeming or interesting qualities. This girl from my high school, which was a long time ago, apparently has a podcast dedicated to her talking about being a bitch, doing bitch things and not giving a fuck about others. It just gives me so much second-hand embarrassment and I didn't even know her really treats animals poorly. Friend's ex-boyfriend used to harass and abuse her dog. A stray foot every now and then is an excuse as to why he knocked the dog off her feet, squeezing her paws so hard that she would cry, pointing a gun and shoving it in her face like he was going to hit her with it. Wasn't too big of a surprise that he ended up being verbally and a bit physically abusive to my friend too before she broke it off. I dated a girl for about a year. We were both in college, and lived with our respective parents, cheaper than a dorm. Yo! We didn't go to each other's homes often. One day I was at her house, and she mentioned something about her dog. Her what? How did we date for a year and I never knew she had a dog? She asked if I wanted to meet him, and I immediately said yes, because, hey, a dog. It turned out her family had a sweet, full-grown golden retriever in a maybe 10*X10 cage in the backyard. I asked if she took him out to play with him, and she said he stayed in there all the time because he jumps all over us when he's out. There's no way I could abide being a part of a family like that. My mother disowned me because I continued spending time with her siblings after she started a fight. I tried to repair things but she wouldn't budge. It was us or them. So I haven't seen or spoken to my mother, father, sister, niece in almost 5 years. Occasionally I'll get a drunk text message from my mother asking to see my children. But she wants me to drop them off at the end of her driveway and says she doesn't want to see me. Fuck that. It's a strange feeling that you have lost your mother and father before they're dead. They even sold their house and moved without telling me. That was also about 5 years ago. I stopped crying about not having my parents in my life a couple of years ago. Fortunately I have 2 great children and an amazing wife. I'm just going to keep it moving. You probably already know this yourself, because I don't underestimate you, but I still want to say this. Don't drop your kids there when you yourself are not allowed inside. At best, they will try to talk shit to the kids about the parents, so that the kids will hate the parent. If that doesn't work, they will try to look at the kid for signs of abuse. At worst they'll kidnap your kids. I was the kid in a situation. My grandma is a narcissist, or sociopath. Wanted to see me, but not my mom, and she still had bit of control over my mom, by threatening to call her brother who's aggressive. So my mom let my grandma see me and my brother. Biggest mistake, we were almost removed from our mother because she saw signs of abuse on us and it almost worked. The funny thing is, my mom got physically abused when she was a kid and then the old woman of CPS just drank tea with my grandma without removing my mother from an actual abusive situation, but with me I almost got removed while my mom has never abused or hit me at all. My grandma also showed me once when I was 8 to not be afraid of spiders. I saw the spider on the door and got scared. She showed me to not be afraid by pulling the legs of the spider out one by one, while it was running away. Trying to survive, saying that is how I be in control and thus not be scared. I never forget that because I have always found that saying odd. Little kid version of me cried for that spider that night. I remember praying to some spider god for forgiveness. Lamau.